Yeah, I couldn't even turn it off. I was like, oh yeah. Toya. I know, man. Disgrace. Hi, baby. What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing, baby? What are you doing? Hey, come here. Come here. Hi. That's what we're doing.
Just making his rounds.
That's your own.
I was going to say, how can we talk about it?
All right, let's get started. For sure. All right. Hi, guys. It's good to see you. Glad you guys are here on Friday night. Today is going to be today we're going to do a Q&A. I don't know if you guys have been a part of a Q&A before. Yep. But I like to do it once a month or whenever I forget that I need to write a sermon. So today we're going to be doing Q&A. It's actually one of Chief's favorite. Hey, Chief. Hey, Chief.
Chieftain.
We're going to do a Q&A today.
Oh, nice. Let me write my question there.
So the way this goes is that you get to write down a question, if you got one, biblically related, life advice, some dilemma that you got going on, something you might be curious about. And you're going to write it down, and you're going to put it in the box, and we're going to kind of shuffle it around and pull it out, and we're going to answer these questions together, because I think we're a bunch of geniuses. And I think that it's quite biblical that we should be going to each other for counsel, because I think we have a lot of people in here that are very aware of problems that we have as individuals and how we can grow from those things as well. So yeah, if you have a question, I want you to wave down Tris so she can get you a little piece of paper and a pen so you can write down what that question concerned, biblical question, life advice, whatever that looks like. And she'll be able to help me out with that. But before we jump into that, would anybody like to open us up in prayer? Yes, please. Yes.
Oh, yes. All right. Dearly Father, thank you today. Thank you for just all the people we are working on today. Myself. I just ask you to just deliver this message to us, Lord, as soon as possible, and as special as possible, so that it touches our lives. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Before we jump in, as I usually like to do, is check the pulse of this church and see all the praise reports that are happening. So I want to hear what God is doing in our lives. So does anybody have any praise reports? Anything great that God is doing in our lives? Yes, sir.
I just got hired on at La Habra Fire.
Yeah!
Excited about it.
That's really exciting.
As long as the background check goes through, we're solid.
All right, cool. Things are moving very quickly for you, porn star. I'm very happy about it. To be able to shoot for the stars. Yeah, that's awesome. Getting jobs. It's a wonderful thing. Yes.
So I shared this in women's Bible study, but I didn't share it in this Bible study. So I didn't see my office 2 days ago. So it's my own office.
Yeah.
Working with Sobriety
Yes.
on Sunday. And I met all of the colleagues and got introduced to everybody, and I got my employee login.
That's awesome. We're getting jobs, we're getting promotions, and oh my god, we're like moving forward. Jobs we probably feel like we don't deserve, and it's like really fun to be able to do these things. So that's awesome. Yes, sir.
After leading by example and coming down here and getting cleaned up, my other brothers making the same decision.
Nice.
Yes. I think it's so cool that like when we start making changes ourselves, the people it is that we may know or not know if we have any kind of pull with or influence with, they start like actually like leaning into us and be like, you know what, I actually respect this a lot, but like, oh my god, I didn't know anybody was watching.
Yeah.
And when they do, and they start making movements like that, it really kind of gives us a little more spark to be like, yeah, you know what,
Yeah.
keep doing what I'm doing. It's working pretty good. Yeah, that's
yeah.
awesome, dude. I'm glad. You said your brother, right?
Yeah, my brother.
Yes, dude, that's awesome. I love that
Yeah,
stuff.
it's great.
Really cool. Thank you. Anybody else? Praise reports. Yes, ma'am.
I found out yesterday that my daughter that's here in California that followed me here, that she has 11 months clean and sober.
Woo! Yeah. Killing it. The kids are also getting sober too. Ooh-wee. A bunch of trendsetters in here. I love that. Yes, sir.
I just reached out to my sister, and she reached out back finally.
Yeah.
And, over 3 years since I talked to her, so.
Yes.
Yeah.
Starting to make
Yeah,
connections.
man, that's just
Yeah.
like, when do I get visits and all that other stuff.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
We're starting to make connections with people. A lot of what we thought burned bridges. Taken us a while, but we seem to have built those bridges back up. It was a little wonky at first.
Yeah, it's a little.
But you know what? We're building them still. And I think it's important to understand that not all burned bridges are dead forever. If we put in the hard work, then we might be able to pull that back together. So that's awesome. Thank you for sharing. Is anybody else? Praise reports. Praise reports.
I had a really frustrating and stressful in a lot of ways, but I'm grateful I'm here.
Good. Yeah, praise report is that you're here. It's wonderful. Because yes, we can all have these frustrating days, and it's up to us to be able to change our perspective on things based off of how it is that we treat our days afterwards and things that we do have control. I think that's important. Thank you for being here. I appreciate that. Yes.
I got a sponsor.
You got a sponsor and a beer. I'm assuming you like this person.
Yeah, they're like really strict on me and they're telling me what to do and everything, and they're holding me accountable.
I
So
love it.
it's cool.
I like the strict ones. The strict ones are fun. Tommy, yes.
I committed to going into a rehab for I don't know how many days,
Yeah.
but however long it takes. I want to work on my mental health as well as my drug problem,
Yes.
because I think that's the core of it.
Yeah.
Me using drugs is it's a solution for something that's inside of me that I have to let go of.
Yeah.
And I have to be 100% honest about it. And I don't like talking about it, and I don't talk about it much.
Yes.
And the first time I did talk about it was 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I did so well for a period of time.
Yeah.
But then I got relaxed and I stopped putting into my recovery as much as I put into my drug use.
Yes.
And they found the devil got me a weak spot, and I relapsed.
Yeah.
And then I did all right again, but then I used it again a couple days. Not last night, not before, because I was going to rehab the next day, and I did it again.
Yeah.
And that's so stupid.
Sure.
Why, just because I'm going into rehab, that means I gotta go out and get high the night before I go to rehab.
Sounds pretty good.
But I did it. And I wish I never did.
Yeah.
But I did, so.
It's all right, Tommy. You're alive today. That means we can make some good decisions going forward. That's
That's exciting, man.
Being able to get past that fear, also that
I've
pride, that weird mix.
gotta start being 100% honest.
I love it.
'Cause if I'm not, it's not gonna work.
Exactly.
You keep holding secrets, they'll come back to you.
I love it. That's a great praise report. That we're making big decisions to be able to actually move forward in our lives, and I'm proud of you. We'll be praying for you
Thank you.
too. Okay, brother? Love it. Yes, sir.
I'm just glad to be back, bro.
I'm glad you're back, Kenny. It's good to see you, Kenny. So I got one more, maybe one more praise report. Yes, sir.
I'm just glad God gave me the opportunity to be here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Really good to have you here, Daniel. I think you're a
Cool dude.
We're going to jump into our night. Again, I just want to throw it out there. What we're doing is we're writing out questions. If anybody has a question, maybe a biblical question, maybe it's some life advice. Maybe you're going through something right now and you don't really know how to express what that looks like, but you need some counsel. You don't have to put your name on it. We're not going to call anybody out. Unless you want to put your name on it, we can call you out. But it's really just about, hey, I need some advice. I need some direction. I would love to hear your opinion about things. Maybe it's a biblical question. Maybe you're like, I never really understood what this thing meant in the Bible. Or maybe I never understood what this thing said. My Catholic grandma told me one time, and it just doesn't make any sense in my head anymore. Or maybe somebody else is having some concerns about who is God and all these other things that kind of float around with that as well. And I believe those things are good, but I think it's good to have questions. So what I'm stating right now is that this is a safe space to be able to ask those questions. So if you have any questions like so, I want you to raise your hand, get this person's attention so she can give you a piece of paper. You can write that on, you can put it in a little box, okay? Yeah, good. All right, perfect. What I find to be really interesting is when I came into this circle, I was very much a pompous know-it-all. And I think I still am, but there's still like certain things that I understand about myself by this point. But more than anything, I thought that I knew more than everybody else. What I come to understand very quickly is that I'm actually surrounded by people, a sea of knowledge and information. And everybody had the same problem that I did, which had nothing to do with whether we knew something, and everything to do with the fact that we were too lazy to put any of it to action. That's the fact. And when I noticed those things, I began to understand that why are we not talking about what it is that we know? Why are we not talking about all the things that we've learned as individuals and as groups? How come we're not really trying to help each other out with all the great advice that we have? Having to go to all kinds of different lengths to be able to figure out things that quite possibly would be right here. In the Bible it says to confess your sins to one another, that you may be able to glorify God. When we see the connection to each other and start confessing these sins or these questions and things like that to each other, it's way more powerful than being able to sit in a box and telling somebody else that's going to tell you to just say 10 prayers later. The reason why it's so powerful is because when we start confessing to each other, we begin to let each other know that I'm a human being and I need some direction and I trust you to help me. It creates accountability. From that point, it cracks it open to a place where we can actually start building what we would call a church. And we can start actually trusting each other and saying, you know what, maybe we can actually make some movements forward. And I think it's important for us to be able to have that trust in each other. But it starts with being brave enough to start saying something. It requires a bravery to be able to say, you know what, I have a question and I think it's a stupid one. And for us to be able to say, oh, trust me, that's not a stupid question. I've asked that question many a time. Or maybe I still have that question. That's a great question. Maybe we should try to find somebody who can answer that. Or maybe we could study together and try to see where we can go from there. That, to me, has always been like the crux of real growth. And it's always exciting to be able to know that I'm surrounded by people that are not afraid to talk about things. And trust me, I know that because we've done this before a few times. Q&A, and you come to find out very quickly that people have all kinds of advice and they're very ready to be able to help each other out. So, Tris, you're reeling over? We'll get started. Here's mine.
These are good ones, man. Yeah,
All right. I'm not going to promise we're going to get to all of them. I'm not going to promise that when I read one, I'm not going to be weirded out by it and be like, we're not going to answer that one tonight. But
It's still,
yes, you have a question right here. Like I said, I'm not promising that we're going to get to all of them tonight, but I think these are really, really cool to be able to do. I don't know what that word is, I'm sorry.
Chicken scratchies.
Oh, got it. All right, got it. Figured it out. I'm a genius. It says, I'm going home on the morning of the 10th. Is it normal to feel so damn nervous? Is it normal to feel so nervous? I want you to raise your hand and give me an answer for this person. You're going home on the 10th. A lot of us know what that means, going home.
Yeah.
Okay? A lot of us know what that means. In fact, a lot of us have been through this. This person is nervous. Is that normal? And why is it normal? Yes, sir.
For example, I just went home this last week for like 6 days, and getting back, I had all those same feelings and stuff when I was doing drugs. You know what I'm saying? So I like her and I got this like little scuffle and stuff, and it just brought back memories. And what I used to do is just try to mask it, you know. And so we worked through it, and we were able to be successful. But that first day, I had all these massive feelings, you know, wanting to like, and I was craving and stuff, and all this, you know, just these troubles. But we worked through it, and then I was totally good the rest of the time. You know,
that's a real experience, right? I mean, I was raised in Santa Ana. That's only like a city or two over from here. And there are times where I've gone just into certain neighborhoods, and those neighborhoods don't necessarily mean anything specifically negative, but the feelings come back. It's almost like going into a time machine, right? And when that comes up, it's almost like your brain, your heart says, "Oh, this is where we are. Wham! These are the emotions you should be feeling right now." No, I don't want to feel it at all. And it feels as though we don't have any control over that. And so it really is like one of the best tests to see like where you're actually at. But yeah, it's true. There's that initial feeling that comes up you really don't have any control over. And every single tool that you've been building up. Okay, so this is what I've been waiting for, and this is what I'm going to work on. So it's a good thing that we actually go through that. I like that. Yes, sir.
I think like what we're taught to is like let go, relinquish control, like let go of the wheel. And while you're in treatment or here or surrounded by the people that keep you accountable, and you're going to a place where there's none of that, like it's nerve-wracking. Like for me, I was at the old treatment center I used to work at today. Just dropped my girlfriend off, but I remember moving out of the sober living that I've been living in for the last year, and just knowing that I can go home and be drunk and nobody's gonna call me out on it, Like there's no clients there that I have to be sober for. I can do it, like my girlfriend and my roommate will, but like what are they gonna do? Send me back to rehab? Maybe they will work there, but like just not having accountability and being in charge of your own will, it's scary, I think.
Yeah.
And I go home every once in a while, and I just like am afraid to run into people I know. I'm afraid to like go down like to where I used to live, like with my ex. I'm afraid to go to any of the places that I used to go because they just bring back, like you said, all those old memories. So I think just like having a solid like group of people that look out for you where you go, and not being afraid to reach out to the people that are here, because just because we're far away, doesn't mean we're not willing to answer the phone and talk.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned that it's like a very different environment. We don't really pay much attention to it or give much credit to it now, but truth be told, we kind of make it easy for each other.
Yeah, we're safe.
There's a lot of love here. There's a lot of acceptance. There's a lot of understanding. You can't force people that are not in this circle to understand what we understand. It's not possible. They have to go through the same types of experiences that we go through, and being able to just be in each other's presence to see that. I've made this very clear to people. I am as normie as you can get in the terms of how people see drug addicts and stuff like that. But for me to learn what's happening here, I had to live here, be here to understand. Oh, I understand it now. I get it now. And now it becomes like, this is my problem now. Like, this is my recovery now. Now, when I hear the words recovery and stuff, I'm looking at it a very specific way. I'm not correlating this with drug abuse. That's not what I'm correlating from. I'm correlating with growth and moving forward and being able to understand what it feels like to have your feelings take over and say, I would like to go backwards instead of forwards. Every single person in this world can relate with that, but they put so many people inside of a box and said, that's not who it is that I am. I don't deal with that. So what we have done was made it a safe space for all of that by the experiences and understanding that when you finally go out into the real world, they don't react as well as we do.
Even then, I can stop showing up here and give it a week, and someone's gonna call me and be like, "Yo, where you been?"
Yeah, it's true.
Where have you been? And because people are worried about me.
That's right.
I don't talk to my friend for a month. Where I'm from, I'm not out with that.
Yeah, it's true. And so, because I think subconsciously we understand how safe this place is, and that's when we get nervous about going back to these places, because we understand how safe this place is and how scary it is out there. But we still have to practice what it means to go out there and face our fears, face the fact that maybe we're the leaders. And if we are the leaders, then we're going to have to start facing certain situations like this. I think it's important. Yes?
What it's like, if you're anything like me, you come out here with nobody, and then you gain a family, so these other people we get to lean on. But when you go home, you're like, oh, I want to go and I want to brag and show off all like what I look like now, what I became, and I call all the old people that I thought was my family, which are still addicted to drug use. It's a difference. Like I don't have a circle one that doesn't use drugs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like it's like we run back and that's where we're using tools, and we can't do that.
Yeah. We
gotta know we can't do that because we might not be as strong as we are. But then again, it says that you got to test your strength.
Yes.
So it's kind of like I mean, I like to brag about my accomplishments.
Yeah.
Just make it so.
I think that's good. I think that we should be bragging about it, but then understanding that you can very quickly turn into arrogance, and you actually, and when that happens, you maybe set yourself for a failure. Yes, ma'am.
I think one thing to keep in mind is the nervousness is natural. There should be some nervousness. You're going back into familiar setting with a completely different mindset, a completely different set of skills. Having realistic expectations for yourself. One, that I may or may not be able to do this fully. Like I know when I went back home, I left home 2 days early. There had to be some grace. Whereas like I could get there and have all these expectations of what I think it's going to be. I'm going to be so great, it's going to be so different. And I can get there and I'll be like, I can't do this shit at all and go home. So having the grace with yourself and being like, I am going to test this water, but when I know, because you know when you know, I mean, like, we all get that. You know when things are about to go downhill, be like, all right, it's time for me to dip. And then go back again when the time is right. When you have those skill sets that you put into practice on a daily basis, practicing the spiritual principles, strengthening your relationship with God, strengthening your relationship with self to be like, okay, this is what I'm capable of, this is what's past my threshold. So kind of having that balance of testing strength while also practicing grace.
Yeah, I like that. We're not necessarily going back into things where we're like, I'm just going to nail it when I get there.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you're going back here to be able to test where you are. And tests are opportunities to be able to see if you've been doing good in the practice or not. And when we give ourselves enough grace to say that, oh, you're not going to go out there and be like, everything's going to be perfectly fine, and I'm going to come back and be like, everything went totally great. You might have missed something because you literally left there for a reason, which means that it's going to be a challenge to go on back. And when we do that, we give ourselves enough grace to be able to say, you know what, I'm probably going to have to learn a couple more lessons of what it feels like to be back at home, be around all these people. It's important for us to be able to notice those things and say, I will be good on some things. There'll be other things where I'm not so great on. And anybody who has been back home knows that I was successful on a few things. I was a huge failure on a couple of things. And I wasn't as ready as I thought I was. But that's good. I'm glad I know that because now I know what I can work on when I come back home into my safe space, to my circle. But I think it's important to be able to know that, yeah, should you be nervous? Yeah, of course you should be nervous. But at the same time, you shouldn't be terrified to the point to where you don't do it. I believe it's important for us to move on from that. Your next question. Why do I feel guilty talking to a guy while I'm learning to have more faith? I'll crack this open, and not just guys, but girls too. Why do I feel guilty talking to a guy, girl, while I'm learning to have more faith? This person sounds like they're, you know what? They're trying to go on for the good fight and say, like, I'm trying to build my faith and everything. But you know what? I like talking to the guys. I like talking to the ladies, you know? But I'm starting to feel guilty about that. Why am I feeling guilty about that? Anybody have an answer for that? Yes.
I guess it's dependent on how much attention you're putting between the two. Yeah. Like, do you feel guilty because you're talking to another person that you find interesting and that you want to get to know more, or are you feeling guilty that you're putting more effort into that than your faith?
That's good. There's a guilt maybe coming from two different places. Is it just interested in being a romantic thing, or is it that you're trying to figure somebody out, or is it because you're feeling guilty because you're putting them way above the totem pole and you probably shouldn't? That's the thing too. Yes.
On another note, it could, like, specifically for our inner circle. For our inner circle, I think that, and I can say this personally, okay?
Sure.
A lot of people that come here are very fragile, they're just coming off drugs, they're just trying to get a relationship with God. So, like, for me personally, I start to feel guilty because they're so fragile.
Yeah.
They're so vulnerable. They're so, they're not right, I'm not right, we're all not right, really, probably, but, but they also have I just feel like they're in such a vulnerable state that, like, we could get in between. I mean, that could take somebody out. Really, a lot of drug we hear about all the time. So it's just like, that's all.
Very true. I agree with that. I think that it is. I think it can be quite distracting, and especially for a group of people that are trying to grow. I've seen that, and I've talked about this a couple weeks ago. About how I see, like, love drug or trying to be romantically involved can very much take us off our path very quickly, especially if somebody's not responsible enough to be able to snap yourself back in place. And I would say that most of us are not that responsible to snap each other back in place. Because, man, you know what? Going on dates is just so much more fun than being here at the Magic House. When that starts happening, that's when you know you're starting to float in the opposite direction. Yes?
I think, too, like, for me, I kept my relationship secret for myself.
Strategies.
Because, you know, I mean, we're taught, too, like, you know, in recovery, and I don't know about, like, the byword, and then give it a year. You know, give it a year. Give yourself time to go. I'm still learning who the fuck I am.
Yeah.
You know, like, and I'm trying to learn how to love myself. How can I love you? You know, right? And I felt so guilty because one, I was keeping a secret, and you know, I didn't like that because I'm trying to be honest, and I felt like, you know, I was just the fattest liar in the world about something so small. But you know, like you said, like, we are so fragile, and I don't care what anybody says. Every single one of us here is codependent as hell.
I didn't say it.
Like,
Mike said it.
When people ask it and not everybody raises their hand, I'm like, bullshit. I was codependent on the drug. I was codependent on my girlfriend. I was codependent on the internet. I was codependent on everything. I go too into what I invest myself in, and I invest everything. So, of course, it's going to distract me from what I'm trying to set my mind to, what I came here for. You know, I came here to find God, to get myself right, and find myself. And in a relationship, like, unless the only way I've seen it work is work in 2 different programs, you know, like, I don't even go to the same meetings she goes to, she don't go to the same meetings I go to, we don't do things like that together. And it works. You know? And she's got significant time. So, like, and so do I. She's 13 to 17. No, but that's the biggest thing. We talked about it yesterday at a panel, Alika did actually, and he's just talking about, like, it's a huge distraction for us, and it'll stop you from the bigger picture. Because you're going to get so hyper focused on that, and I haven't even learned how to not be codependent yet. So how am I not going to be codependent?
Yeah, I agree. Thank you, Mike. That's actually really solid. Yes.
Okay, so if everybody doesn't know, I'm strictly Toya for a whole year. So they put this ring on my finger, so I'm not allowed to do anything. But it's taught me self-discipline.
Yes.
Okay. So I've noticed that before this happened, that the things that would catch my interest outside of everything I was taking in spiritually would get me distracted, and it would get me off the course.
Yes.
It was just such a big sidetrack.
Yeah.
So now I've noticed that if anything that is not a good spiritual health or wealth or whatever, it does sidetrack me. It does take me off. It does, you know, especially if they're like, in my opinion, they need to show up and show out themselves. So they need to stay on that same path. They need to keep pushing. They need not to want to distract you. They need, you know, like somebody like that. So.
Yeah. And honestly, to touch on that really quick, sorry. Anything, like you're saying, like anything that distracts you or whatever, anything's a distraction from the hard work of working on ourselves. Like, I get distracted on this cage staring at it for hours because I don't want to do my 4th step.
Yeah.
Or, well, I'm not feeling good right now. I have to use the restroom, and I'm in there for the entire day because I don't want to do something because it's so hard to work on ourselves.
That's solid. It's the understanding that you'll use any excuse you can get your hands on to be able to not make progress. And so it's not necessarily the other person at times, but man, another person is really distracting. Really distracting. Versus a cage, I believe that person is very distracting. This is the first thing I saw. The bathroom, I'm sure I'd rather, you know, hang out with somebody than in the bathroom. But it's still the same mentality. It's the idea that am I easily distracted? And one of the easiest distractions is to be with somebody. And I just wanted to reread the question. It says, why do I feel guilty about talking to somebody while I'm trying to build faith? When you think about that, this idea is very much somebody saying, like, something feels off, and it should. Is because it's like I'm trying to pursue this, but I can feel myself going this way. I can feel myself going off, right? We know when we're distracted. We can feel that distraction happening. I tell people all the time, stay honest, no secrets. Because those are honestly the 2 main things that have kept me on any kind of track. And honestly, if I were to push it down to very a minimal way of going about things, it's a lot of things that Chief has taught me in this few years I've known him. And it's just like, stay honest and no secrets. If you can keep it that way, then you will always be accountable to everything it is that you are going through. And especially if you have some sort of distraction in your life, it'll show itself as well. Yes?
I think you absolutely need to keep in mind, like, am I trying to distract myself? Also checking your intentions. Because especially, like, the first year of our recovery, if you're doing recovery, not sobriety specifically, like, we need to be really, really diligent about the intentions of which we do something. Am I pursuing this person because I know I want to distract myself? Am I pursuing this person because I'm getting something out of this? Am I pursuing this person with, I guess you could say, with, like, negative intentions, consciously or subconsciously? Why am I so interested in talking about this person? Like we really need to ask ourselves those questions.
being able to be honest with self and being able to ask these questions, I highly recommend that you don't ask them to yourself and then give yourself answers for this. I highly recommend that you open this up to other people around you that know you better than you know yourself. It's people that you build solid relationships with that care about you very much. Asking those questions, I can give myself answers all day, and I'll give myself the answers that I want. To be able to ask these questions out loud to people that will keep us accountable to information and get multiple the people that love you too, multiple pieces of opinion about these specific things that you're asking. It's one, showing bravery to be able to get an actual answer, but also two, it opens it up to say that you don't want to be biased to your own answers either. Being in that full-blown, I need to study what's happening with myself, it requires for us to ask questions like this, to really kind of get into the nitty-gritty of who we are as individuals and really try to figure out these things. Yes, last one.
Do you think that people in recovery should date people or go with people that are in recovery? Because I know from my experience, it's very difficult because my ex drinks a lot, and I can't be around that.
Yeah.
And I don't know, is it a recommendation that you should date somebody in recovery, or even not even just in recovery, or that don't drink at all, maybe,
That's
or don't, or maybe a glass of wine 2 times a year.
Sure. That's a different question.
Yeah,
that would string off.
It was like
a lot of different opinions about it. But what I will say is that I don't think that anybody is limited to any specific type of freedom when it comes to what it is they pick. But you have to be. This is critical. You have to be so aware of how much growth that you have made with as an individual. Honestly, I've seen very few people that have been able to survive in relationships. Somebody is understand themselves an alcoholic and they're with somebody who's just a social drinker. It doesn't. I've seen people literally be taken out because of stuff like that. But it's also to say that it's not like, oh, the only people that should be together is an addict in recovery with an addict in recovery. I feel like that's also something that's limiting the ideas of what it means to see the world for what it actually is. And so, I think it's a deeper discussion about what that looks like. But I think it's also I feel like that gets diced up in so many different ways. And it's important for us to be able to do that, though. So that's good. I like that. Thank you for asking. How can you turn frustration or anger into something positive or make an impact? How can you turn frustration and anger into something positive or to make an impact? You feel those feelings of frustration and anger, and trust me, we feel those feelings. When they come up, how do I make lemonade out of those and have some positive situations or something impactful in a way? Yes, sir.
I would say any kind of way you find possible, just turn it into some kind of passion where it's some kind of self-expression. It might look different for a lot of people, but whether it's writing, getting the gym going, boxing, just finding something that speaks to you.
Yes, absolutely. Any kind of creative or physical outlet to be able to get that anger out. Sometimes what it is, it can turn into fuel, right? It's a good fuel for us to be able to create something or to build self. I think if we can get into that habit, then what we're doing is we're recognizing it as something to be used, but not necessarily use it in a negative way, but actually feel it in something positive. That's really good. Thank you. Yes.
Like in certain situations, especially when it's hard or you're leading a team that's working hard, make a joke of things. And it can change the whole mood of what's going on.
That's good. I like that. Chief has shown me more than anybody really that you can kind of divert a lot of really awkward scenarios by just making a joke out of it. I've seen, it's got to be a good joke too. I've seen really, really awkward scenarios, like in house meetings and stuff, really awkward scenarios, and just make a joke and I guess, it doesn't matter, and just don't care anymore. But it's still addressed, it's still out there, but it's almost like what we're saying is, that's a lot bigger than just a conversation. Or maybe that's not as big a deal as you think that it is because I just threw a joke out there and it's it's not really that big of a deal. So it's almost like just throwing water on the fire, It's like, oh my God, I think this fire is going to destroy everything. It's not. And then you just get to that understanding and it's well, maybe we can talk about this later. Or maybe this is not the setting for that. Or maybe it's not that big of a deal. You notice how quickly I snuffed out your fire. It wasn't that big of a fire to begin with. And so when you begin to notice those types of things, making jokes or making things light, I think it's a good practice.
But you're saying when you're being receptive to the frustration and anger,
Or when you're the anger frustration from within?
From within. When I feel frustration or anger, how can I turn that into something positive or something impactful? Yeah, that's the question. Yes?
What worked for me, because I used to get, I wasn't always this sunshine. But
No?
Oh, yeah.
So what worked for me is like getting into a routine of reading Psalms and Proverbs and 3 Grateful every morning. That worked
Yeah.
for me. You know, like I was kind of a little bit antisocial, little bit.
Yeah.
And that helped me a lot because all this, whatever I was going through, there always comes from that discomfort.
Yeah.
And it helped me through.
That's good. I like that. Being able to they actually have in practice, so being able to find that comfort, being able to find those ways of woosah, like how can I like really kind of chill out on that, is finding some positive reinforcement to be able to kind of like turn into that. And it builds a lot of our faith in how it is that we change those things around. That's really good. Can I have one more maybe? One more? Yes. Sure.
Tackle it.
Yeah.
For me, like, whenever I got really, really angry early on, trying to get better, using the tools that were given to me to like control my own feelings.
Yeah.
And not blow up on people or not go off on people and handle it the way a person would and not like, you know, get all defensive or catastrophize what's going on. You know, it made me feel a lot better at the end. Like, I handled that really well, and I go back into the text and I'm like, yeah, that was solid. Like, I replied to that good. Like, I didn't call that person a bitch. I didn't call that person, you know. Like, and then afterwards, I'm like proud of myself for not blowing up on someone or trying to fight somebody. And like, I'm gonna butcher this, but it was like taught me like feelings lead to thoughts, thoughts lead to plans, plans lead to action. If I can control the thought, you know, like I'm mad, but like okay. Fuck this person, I'm gonna go beat him up. Like, okay, maybe they're sicker than me. Like, maybe there's a reason I'm angry at this person. And then I can pray for that person instead of just going off on them.
Yeah. It's being able to kind of like expand on the scope of how you understand the world, right? A lot of the times I know that I've been angry or frustration because I've been very limited, ignorant thought process. It's usually the reason why I'm angry. It's because I don't understand. I believe that the opposite of anger usually is understanding.
What was my part of it?
Yeah, what was my part of it? How can I have avoided that? Or how can I have made it better? If I'm called to be a peacemaker, how could I have made an angry situation actually peaceful?
Someone cuts you off on the freeway instead of chasing him down the entire time. Like, maybe this person's in a hurry and didn't see me there. Yeah.
I've and some of you might have heard me say this before, is that I've had to kind of like change the narrative in my head, even if it wasn't true. Like if I saw somebody cut me off and they're speeding and they're being a total jerk and everything, it's kind of messed up. But I used to tell myself, you know what? They're probably on their way to the hospital because their mom's about to die. And when I do stuff like that, at least for myself, it changes the narrative. So I'm not necessarily just so angry at the world because I just assume everybody's a jerk and nobody cares and all these different things. It actually changes the way that I understand the world.
You change the thought.
What was that?
You change the thought.
Yes, and you're able to change the thought, right? Yeah. And you'll begin to understand that the only reason why you're emotionally attached to something is because you think it's personal. You think it has something to do with you. If I can detach myself from the situation and say, well, I wonder what they're going through. I wonder if they're having a hard time. And there are certain people that I just don't like. And when I see those people, what changes my way of looking at them is I imagine them going through the hardest times in their life and sitting in the corner and crying and trying to figure out how am I going to get out of this, because every single person is a human being and they go through that. And it's those moments where my heart softens up and all of a sudden I get to understand something. Chief says it a little differently. He says, I like to hear people's backstories. It changes the way that you see that person. If they're just the guy who cut you off, the person who did you wrong, if that's as far as their story arc goes, it's easy to be mad at them. It's easy to not care about who they are because that's all they are to you. But when you begin to blow the story up to be much bigger than that, and you think about them when they were a kid and all the things they had to go through in the same way that you had to go through a lot of things, but they had somebody that loved them very much, and they had their first crush, they had their first breakup, and they had their first moment where they were going through pain and misery, that they went through things just like you did. It begins to change it, and all of a sudden they're not just the person who cut you off, the person who wronged you. Now they're a human being. And when that happens, it's not anger anymore. It turns into empathy. It turns into compassion at times. And that's the way I believe that the reason why Jesus came here is to be able to say, I understand. And when he can say, I understand, he can see people for being people. And that's what we're trying to do. So I want to see people for being people. And I get so angry because, again, I take it personal. I think it has something to do with me when in reality it probably has nothing to do with me. And so it's good to be able to kind of change that around. It says, Has anyone encountered a spiritual encounter that has created, that has, yeah, I don't know what this is. Can you try to read this for me?
Lives. Yeah, has anyone encountered a spiritual encounter that has affected their lives?
All right, has anybody ever
effect in their lives? Created a big effect?
Has anybody had a spiritual encounter that really changed the course of their life?
I came here.
Huh?
We came here.
Oh, that's a good one. Coming to the Magic House is probably a decent example of what that looks like. Spiritual encounter, right? Love and all these things come up. Yes, sir.
So when I was back in some years ago, there was this dude, man. I was close to this dude, and every day, man, this guy would always tell me, "Hey, Frank, let's read the Bible."
Yeah.
I was like, "All right, cool, let's read it." You know, that's all. Yeah. Hey, Frank, let's read the Bible.
Yeah.
All right. And Bible prayer call, you know. So then I come back and he's like, "Hey, Frank, so what'd you learn from prayer call?" Oh shit. You want to know, why don't you just go up there? Like, no, I want to know what you learned.
Yeah.
What did you hear? What did you get from it? Like, let's read the Bible. All right. Well, it got so annoying, bro, that he was planting seeds in me, bro.
Yeah.
And that's my spirit.
Yeah, I like that. Spiritual encounter sometimes is not as, because a lot of us are looking for that moment where like God drops down and like has that Paul on Damascus Road type of situation going on. But most of us is not going to have that specific type of scenario. Most of the time, it's going to be some dude that comes up to you and says, "What you learned today?" Right? It's annoying too. They don't have the anointing; they have the annoying. And when they do that, up to us, we start to get pushed, and we get to understand that spiritual encounters is Christ in us encountering other people, and that's a spiritual encounter. That's when somebody is capable of passing on Jesus Christ, passing on the love of Christ to somebody else. It's a huge moment. And it ends up changing people's lives. But again, people get really picky about how it is that they want to have these spiritual experiences, and it needs to be God coming. If God comes down and blah, 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 and all these different stipulations about how they'll grow, then they really just pigeonhole themselves and they'll never really open themselves up to a real spiritual encounter. But I think a lot of people have all kinds of spiritual encounters all of the time. Yeah. And it's up to us to be able to recognize those things and to see them. Yes, sir?
Is it true, like, that, just by, like, you know how, like, you got like tarot cards and all that stuff like that. Is it true that you can actually read someone's like future? You know what I mean?
When it comes down to that's a different question. But when it comes down to prophecy and stuff like that, I believe that prophecy is a real thing. Through tarot cards and stuff like that, I'm going to say that there has always been power outside of God that has been given, we'll say, by demonology. Truth be told, there's only two powers. You know, power from God and power from evil. And so when you begin to understand that, it's like, I don't think there's a middle ground to that. I don't think there's just like, because I remember one time I like meeting a fortune teller that was Christian, and I'm like, I don't know if that's a thing. You know, it's like I can understand why people think that's a thing, but I don't necessarily think that's a thing. But I think that's it can get muddy at times as to what that looks like. But yeah, I could definitely go that way. But yeah, thanks for asking for that.
I had a very good experience in changing my life.
Yeah, tell me about it.
I mean, I don't know if it really like it was the last time when I got sober. Was the last time I really did. I was like pretty much schizophrenic, pretty bad when I was using I heard like hallucinations and everything, but I had a whole like spiritual experience of weird, I swear like there's like you know power like that is in the song. Like there's I feel like there's negative spirits and things that are constantly speaking death, you know, over your life. And, you know, like sometimes maybe when you use or something, you might get in some. But I was hearing some bad ones. But at the same time, there's good ones too. You know, and if you like tap into that God, you know, like I had a spiritual experience. Like, you know, it's like I was hearing all this shit, I was going crazy, and you know, it was like, but I heard like a voice. It was weird. It was like in like the voice of a kid. And it was like, but it's like, oh, you're an angel. I've been saying a prayer. I've been saying, you know, like, yeah, they've been saying their prayers, but I've been saying a prayer for you too. And like, You know what I mean? And like, I don't know, I like often reference back to it, and it was weird. Like, I just had this whole crazy like, yeah, it's just not really pretty real. And like, I think about it all the time. And like, it was like a real thing. But I'm like fully convinced that like, there's definitely angels looking over you and negative energies that look over to you. And you feed them, and they are like, you know, like they're here, you know, and you can feed the good ones and the bad ones. And like, it was weird. I heard like another one, like, I don't know, it was weird. Like, it was like I was talking to myself, but I felt like I was talking to like the entities, like, and like the one, like, I was praying the other day, and like the one was like, you like hitting me with verses and stuff, like good things, like Josh, you know, they're kind of like saying like, oh, like building me up even though I was high. Like, I went out so bad, like I was serving God, I was good, like I was actually happy, and like I went back and like I was like miserable, and like and then like I felt like there was a really powerful one too that was like saying really good things to me. I was like, I don't know who that guy is. And then like the other day I was praying like to God and stuff, and I was like, that woman I was talking to you was your future self, you know what I mean? That was saying, you know what I mean? Like you're living that picture, you know what I mean? Just, but yeah, listen, I was in a bad place. I don't really know how to explain it, and it sounds crazy, but like,
That's fine.
anyways, I don't hear voices anymore, and I'm like fully, you know, like, I'm fully recovered, but you know, I'll never forget though, like, ever, you know, and like, it's just, I think about it all the time. Good to have you back.
Can being an example be taken advantage of? How do you overcome these types of emotions? Can being an example be taken advantage of? Yes.
I feel like, yeah, like kind of what you were saying earlier. Like, yeah, there is like a lot of people who fit the prototype and know it all, but sometimes when you are trying to just set that positive example, even if your life is in shambles, a lot of people like try to dim that. You know what I'm saying? Like, and you might be fighting your own demons as well. You know what I'm saying? Along with them, like we're no different. But for the simple fact that you're choosing a victim mentality over a victim mentality, they kind of give you that, and like trying to snatch that away from you somehow.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, that's actually good. Yes.
I like how we're being told different levels, different devils.
Different levels, different devils. That is very true. You have very different reaction to these things. I was just. What's that?
Sorry, I didn't raise my hand.
Yes.
It kind of bounces off, you know, what like she was saying earlier. Like it just depends on your intentions, you know. Like you could be able to know it all, and like really you're just trying to like be helpful. I feel like you know, like I sit here and spit facts all day, like, and just trying to look like I'm smart or something, but like really I'm trying to help, you know. And even then, like you got bad intentions, like fame, fortune, like people to like you, all that kind of stuff, like. It gets to you, and then eventually you just go ahead and get corrupt. And I feel like if you're really just like with good intentions, trying to be helpful, then I don't know. It's weird. It just depends on your intentions. I lost where I was going with that.
No, I like that. I like the subject because I'll never forget a thing that Chief said one time. Oh, not one time. He says often enough, actually. He says that people look into the sky and ask God, "Use me, God, use me," and then they get mad when people use them. And God is very much putting them into certain situations to be like, oh, you want to be used. Oh, you want to be useful. Oh, you want to be an example. Oh, you want to be, this big, heavy leader and all these different things. Perfect. There's a lot of people that need stuff. There's a lot of people that need direction. So they're going to use you. And then you get all mad at everybody. It's like, how come everybody's using me? Now how come everybody's taking advantage of me? It's like, well, did you ask for this or not? What did you want? Were you asking for like, I want to be an example and then nobody bother me about me being the example? It's like, this is how a great, beautiful Christian person does things. And then when people come to you and ask you for things and try to use you in certain ways, you're like, oh, this is not what I was expecting. It's like, maybe you didn't understand what you were asking for. To be an example is to be able to set the tone for everybody. To be able to say, this is what this looks like. And there's a lot of people that will clamor at what that looks like and whether they understand what they're getting or not. It's kind of part of the gig. If you are going to be an example, and to me what that means is you get people that say, how come I have to be the one to be the bigger person?
That's hard.
How come I got to be that person? Why can't they be the bigger person? Right? It's not fair that I have to. It's such a weird concept to think about that. it's like contradicting within itself, you know? Like it's just like, how come I have to be the bigger person? It's like, well, you don't have to actually. You can let them be the bigger person. Oh no, wait, I'm gonna let them be the bigger person. I don't think you understand what it is you're asking for by that point. Because what you're saying is, if you are the bigger person, you're the one who wins. You're the one who understands the whole entire like situation itself. And then you're the bigger person, and then you feel as, oh, they took advantage of me because I was the bigger person. And I'm like, what are you asking for? You may not understand like where you're at. And I think it's funny when people get to that place where you're just like, question being, it's possible people. Question says, can being an example be taken advantage of? Yes. And I think that's the point, is that your example is taken advantage of. Your example is replicated, it is taken, it is asked about, it is diced up to little tiny pieces. Your example is not just for you, it's an example, it's for everybody else to watch. And I don't know about you, but when I watch somebody do something, I'm researching that person. I'm cutting them up in little tiny pieces. My first year with Chief, I asked him a bunch of questions, a lot of questions. We had moments where we're coming from Burbank, and I was sitting in front, and it was quiet, and I just started asking him questions, like, what was it like when you did this and did that? And he was gracious enough to be able to answer those questions. And I got to learn a lot about him and how he understands the world and stuff like that, and it was important to me. And but he was being an example. I was taking advantage of him by asking him a million questions when he could have easily had a quiet ride home, but I took that away from him. I think that's what he understands as a leader, and I think that's what we should understand as leaders, is that people are going to want a piece of that. They're going to want a piece of that wisdom or that peace or whatever it is that you have to offer, and you're going to feel a certain way about it for sure. But I mean, they only came to you because you showed something different. So if you show something different, then expect people to say, I want that. And they can either say in one or two directions. I want that, as in like a positive thing, or I want to take that. But if you have something that is a good example, they can take nothing from you. Unless it can be taken from you, and maybe you don't have something that's that strong.
I like too, like the term like example or leader or something. Like some people want to be leaders or examples, and that's just not what they're called for, But at the end of the day, every single one of us in this room is an example to the person that comes in behind us. Like everybody's watching everybody. I can do something and somebody goes, "Oh, that's shady," but like he's sober, so maybe I should be doing that too. Everybody's example is on a smaller level. Not everybody can be a chief level of example, but it's because it's not your calling. You got to find your purpose.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe that's not it.
Yeah, absolutely. Being able to kind of find out where you are and be honest about that, I think, is really important. I'm gonna ask this question last because I like it.
Because you don't know you do like it.
I like it because it'll be controversial. It says, is the phrase, it's going good, a good answer to move forward?
Wait, what?
I'm going to reword this. I think that this means to me, is it okay for the answer when somebody asks you, how's it going? And your answer is, it's going good. Is that okay to keep on answering like that?
It sounds like they're not good.
What was that?
It sounds like they're not good.
Why do you say that?
It sounds like, I'm not in their head. I didn't write any questions, so. But,
good answer.
It's not real quick. This is a bit, by the way. It's not real.
Thank you, Maddie. I appreciate you.
Take it over. You got it.
I can relate this to an experience I had actually on Sunday. So, someone came up to me in passing and said, how's it going? And I said, it's good.
Yeah.
And then he said, how's it going? And I said, it's good. And then he said, how's it going? And I said, well, it's like your go-to response when there's like so much that you have, but you also, you're grateful for where you're at. For me personally, I'm grateful for where I'm at, but I also have so much, so it's like the go-to answer, like I'm good, I'm good.
Yeah.
Because you're kind of avoiding getting beat with someone, I think.
Yeah, sometimes that response, oh, I'm good, sometimes it means I don't want to talk about it.
Right.
Yeah.
And to be able to kind of like fend people off, it's just like, maybe they'll just be okay with the most like standard answer possible, and you can just like fend them off with that. It's like a solid defense. I'm good. And they're like, all right. And then they went away. Like, all right, good. That's like, it worked out, right? But in our reality, if I were to rebuttal that is that sometimes people ask you a question, how are you doing? They're not really asking how you're doing. Sometimes they're not really interested in how you're doing. So then you have two people that don't want to talk to each other, and one person says, how you doing? And they don't want to talk about it, and the other person says, oh, I'm good, and they don't want to talk about it. Like, you guys should probably just not talk. You're trying to have those conversations. Yes, ma'am.
The only way that you're gonna like be free from what you're struggling with, and just like in like the book we're reading right now, when we drop the rock, it talks about like the only way to get that freedom and like feel that healing is if you talk about it and share about it with people.
Yes, absolutely.
If you're just gonna keep bottling it up, it's like you're gonna have to feeling it taking back out.
Yes.
You have to be able to hear to voice it at some point at least.
I like that. What this person's asking is it okay for me to keep just saying it's good? It's good. Is that okay? And the answer is, well, it depends. If you're scared to talk, then the answer is no, it's not okay.
Yeah.
Because if you're scared to talk, that means there's some things bottled up, and you need to start talking about that. You need to get that out of your system. Because if you bottle it up enough, it'll turn into something. Because we have a tendency of answering our own questions, right? Filling in our own blanks. So it's just like, I'm good. It's another way of I'll figure it out. Even though I've proven multiple times that I'm terrible at figuring things out. So when I say I'm good, I'm basically saying I don't want any help. I can do it on my own. And we've all understood that we cannot do it on our own. And when somebody asks if they're sincere, how you doing? For real, how you doing? We're lucky to have people that actually want to know how we're doing. Because there's people out there, nobody's asking that question. Nobody expects an answer out of them. Nobody's really doing anything like that. So when we have people around that are actually legitimately asking, how you doing? I want to know. Then we can have that moment like you're talking about where it's like, well, actually, this is how I'm feeling. What a great feeling. Was that a good feeling to get that off your chest? Being able to do that is like, that's what it means. And you use the word freedom. It's a freedom. Because we put ourselves in our own emotional cages, and it's not fun to do that. Thank you for sharing. Yes?
In my own experience, fear ran my life, only because it was a fear of not being successful or being successful or not being able to finish something or not being able to start something or not being able to fix something or not being able to accomplish something or starting something, and the fear of not being able, not turning out the way that I wanted it to, you know. I learned that fear stands for face everything and recover, or fuck everything.
Sure.
And so I think a lot of my issues were fear-based, you know. Realizing that, you know what, I'm just going to die an alcoholic addict. I'm not going to, you know, I couldn't see past the way I was living, you know, and I think fear is the basis of a lot of, it creates a lot of unnecessary stress and a lot of unnecessary situations that, you know, I'm just speaking for myself.
Yeah.
That I really didn't deserve to put myself through.
Sure.
But I put myself through that stuff anyway because there was a fear of not knowing, or being ignorant, or you know, being stagnant.
Mm-hmm.
You know, not knowing what to do. What should I do? What should I do? You know, I think that a lot of my problems were faced when I verbalized them.
Yeah.
And just threw everything out on the table. And then a lot of the time, you know, even whether or not it was to my own hurt, you know, it helped the situation that I was in. Mm-hmm. And so it was like, wow, man, I held on to that, or you know, it was not that big of a deal, or that was, wow, that was ignorant for me to think that, and feel that way. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? That, okay, well, this person, you know, I'm not gonna tell this person anything that's going on because, you know, they wouldn't know anything.
Yeah.
Or they wouldn't get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's fear.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just underlying fear.
Yeah, I like that because like you are really hitting on this the fear that every single one of us has, which is and I talked to somebody about this week. I forget who it was, but like we go out of our way to hold ourselves back from expressing who we actually are to people because we're afraid that they're going to see the same insecurities that we see in ourselves. So when we do that enough, then what we're saying is that I don't really want this to get out because I'm still working on it myself, which is a very prideful way of saying I can do it on my own. And when we get to that place where we allow fear to control that, well, then we get into a place to where we end up being alone and start saying, like, I have nobody to talk to about this. It's like, well, that's not true. You chose out of fear to not say anything, and that's not necessarily very helpful. So I appreciate you said that. Thank you. All right, here's my controversial question for the night. Is marijuana okay to smoke? Oh, God. Yes, it is okay to smoke. It's very possible. If you're asking morally, if you can smoke it, I'd love to hear people's opinions about this. No, I'll get you later. No, you.
Okay. Okay, so I'll make this a short one, a short story. So when I got here, I overdosed on fentanyl. So I got scared out of my addiction to opiates. Then I went to everything else: alcohol, meth, then weed. And the weed and the alcohol were kind of the hardest. The weed was the absolute hardest. Because for me, I was like, oh, it opens up my mind, and like I only do it at night, and it helps me pray, and like all these great things. Then I started to feel, well, if you want the truth, instead of smoking the pot, because I'm lightweight, I'll take a hit and I'm like lit.
Sure.
So I hit a pen, which was like infused and OG Kush and all this crazy shit. And that's when it hit me that it's still a mind-altering substance, regardless. It's still, even though, I shouldn't need these things to get closer to God. Maybe it was a step for me, right? Because I am an addict and I am a baby Christian and I'm just going through this. So it was something that God used, I guess, in a sense. Sure. But it's not something to stay in, for me personally. That's my experience. It opened my mind enough to start praying, and then it's time to take a step on my own and let the mind-altering substances go.
I like that. A cool answer. Yes, sir.
I just came from a place where they're smoking weed. It's a program, and it's a gateway drug. I mean, it really is, dude. They give out pens so that these people will relapse to go to their detox, and so on and so on and so on. And I was only there a month, and 3 people relapsed. I mean, just because it's legal, I mean, alcohol's legal, and you're fucking probably half this room's dying from it,
Yeah.
or was, So weed will just look. I smoked weed my whole life, and then like I would parole and I would smoke weed, and then I'd be like, fuck this, I'm tired, man. I need to wake up. So then I'd start doing meth, and then I would get back to heroin every time. But weed lowers your inhibitions, lowers what you think is okay. Yeah. So maybe you're stoned and you're not really feeling too good and you want to go to the beach, but it's too late, then you're gonna fucking get dope. It's just not, it's a gateway for anything, dude.
It's a gateway. All right.
I mean, they got a good solid plan with that detox shit.
All right.
Cheddar.
Yes. It's a good one. I like that. Yes, ma'am.
I feel like if you just to look at the definitions of like what sober means, it is free from any mind-altering substance. Recovery, right? Living recovered is living clean. So if you just want to take it at face value, because I love face value, I have to work real hard not to take things at face value. But if you were just to look at the 2 definitions of those words, if you're trying to practice either one of them or both of them, I love weed. I really fucking did. It was one of the hardest things I fucking had to quit too. Right? Because it made me calm, got more things done. It didn't do anything, right, but make my mouth dry, make me hungry. That's it. That's all it did. But like the reality is like, and Keith touched on it quite a few times, like we're all codependent in some sort of way in this room. We cannot use anything regularly. We can barely even do relationships with people regularly. So we need to keep that into consideration, like be realistic. is it okay to smoke weed while I'm saying I'm sober? While I'm saying I'm doing recovery? Are you asking like, is it okay if I smoke weed because right now I do not have the strength to stay away from everything, and this is my crutch for right now? Personally, like I just said, if you want to be sober, if you want to live recovery, if you want to live clean, raise the bar for yourself a little bit and be like, no, weed's not okay.
Mm-hmm. Pretty good answer. I like that. Yes, sir.
All right. The other day,
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
the other day, I was like, yeah, I'm 16 days clean. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
And then somebody told me, they're like, are you clean off everything? And I'm like thinking in my head, oh shit, I smoked weed the other day.
Yeah.
I'm like, damn. So I wasn't even thinking in my head, dude. I was thinking just off fentanyl.
Yeah.
I was clean. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know. It was just kind of an eye opener to see and hear someone say like, hey, just to let you know, if you're gonna sit there and say you're clean this and that, make sure you're fully clean, dude.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it was an eye opener. I heard what they had to say. So, but I started my date back over today. So now today's day one. So
congratulations. I like that. We get these like recognitions of like, is that maybe it's not.
Yeah.
I like that you're talking about. That's good. Yes.
So one quick question, and then I'm going to say what I was going to say. So at those places that you get to smoke weed, do they get to take chips?
That's more controversial. I don't know.
Okay.
About that.
You know what I mean? They still take chips in their places. But my other thing is, you kind of look back, being sober for a while, and then you go back to your past on, okay, how did I start using drugs? Boom, like people saying, marijuana was my gateway drug. I did use marijuana on the streets growing up, but I didn't start using any other heavy drugs until I was in my 20s. You know what I mean? But on the streets, I was using marijuana. But that led into my non-altering substance of wanting to use other things in the future. So when you sit here and you've been sober for a while, and just asking yourself, is marijuana really a bad thing? We're just going to take a reflection on what you went through and where it got you in the first place.
Exactly.
Nothing good about it.
Yeah, that's good. Do a little reflection on self and see where you're at with it. Yes, sir.
California sobriety. That's what weed is.
Yeah.
That's what when I look at anything and I read and stuff, everybody always reference California sobriety.
Yeah,
You smoke weed, yeah. It's like you're sober, you're smoking weed, but you're not doing everything else. It's labeled for California.
Yeah.
You're not doing it everywhere else, right? They're not accepting it in that way.
Yeah.
And so that's what I found out.
No, I like that you point that out. It's almost like a bubble in which we live in, where we can get away with it just because it's accepted here. That's good. I like that. Yes.
It just like slows the healing process in your brain. So if you're trying to like get clean or just trying to get healthier, it's gonna slow down the process of you actually fully recovering.
It's good. I like that. It slows down the recovery process. That's really good. Yes.
So, with working on sobriety, using marijuana is not good.
Not good. Okay.
Medically, for certain people going through like multiple sclerosis or something like that, medicinally, it's usable.
Okay.
But if you're trying to use it just to get high, that's where I think you're trying to do something to not be sober.
Okay.
But if it's medicine in a sense for pain,
Sure.
for people with like really bad issues.
Yeah. That's good. I like that you stated that. That's a good statement. Yes. Yes.
For me,
For you?
I can't use anything, not even pain pills.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? For me, I feel like marijuana is my favorite drug, so I stay away from it. I can't even smoke cigarettes.
Okay.
I go hard and everything.
It's your favorite. It's your favorite, so you stay away from it. That's good. I like that. Tom.
See, for me, I love smoking pot.
Yeah.
I would start maybe when I got clean, I do it on a Friday night, or then maybe a Saturday night, and then that turned into Tuesday night, just like every other drug. Now I'm smoking first thing in the morning. I'm smoking at break time. I'm smoking at lunchtime. I'm smoking after dinner. It's for me.
It's for the left.
I'm a drug addict. I can't get enough of anything.
Wow. Yeah, that's expensive. That's something expensive. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, real quick. The question, what was the question?
Smoking marijuana, okay.
Okay, that's just on base terms. We're not going in recovery. We're in Bible Zoo. We're going in base terms.
Sure.
For me, and as I've always been asked by others, it really has come down to, are you convicted by it? Yes or no? Yeah. And at the end of the day, we all live in our own convictions. And so, for me, my advice is, feel convicted when you do it. If so, drop it. If not, that's between you and God, you know. As far as the recovery aspect, like that's a whole nother controversial.
Sure.
Yeah, like you said.
And obviously, we can't detach recovery from this question in this room.
Yeah.
But I like that there's conviction for everybody. There's a lot of people in here who be like, I don't think that smoking cigarettes is a bad thing. I don't think smoking vape is a bad thing. I don't think tattoos is a bad thing. I don't think this is a bad thing. That's a bad thing. It's go on and on. List on and on. But the fact that somebody's asking this question probably means you have some sort of conviction because you're asking the question. Mm-hmm. People that don't have convictions on things are like, oh, I'm good. Don't worry about it. Not worried about it.
I mean, if it's something you're thinking about a lot, like actually wanting to use it, then that's an addictive behavior.
Sure.
And so you're technically idolizing that over your relationship with God.
Sure.
So if God doesn't come first, then it's no
what do you
good.
think about that?
It's no
I think
good.
what ends up happening in a room like this is that when we start talking about it more and more and more starts coming up in the head, and it's like, whoa, what about this and what about that? And then our like technicalities and loophole books start coming up, and we're like, yeah, but what about this and that? That's when we start talking about convictions and like, well, it depends on what you're talking about. And medicinally, what do you mean by that? And like, is anxiety, is that part of that list of everything that can What about depression? You know, like you're just like scratching for anything that you can find for it. So I understand where it gets to that point. Chief, I would love to hear your
as leaders.
Yeah.
You and Tris,
yeah.
Do you recommend it's okay for us to smoke marijuana?
For you, Chief? All day. No, I'm just kidding. For me, this is the way. Oh, for anybody who's ever asked me about like this, first of all, I usually feel completely out of like place to even talk about these things. Because again, I've never smoked weed in my life. So for me to step out of it is like, good luck, and you're like, figure it out, guys. I'm ready for you.
No
what was that?
No opinion?
It's not that. I do have an opinion because I have an opinion about everything. I'm that kind of guy. I don't have kids, but I have an opinion about raising kids. So whenever I think about this, it always kind of brings me to that place of when I think about it. I was terrible with school. I didn't really get good grades. Starting at 5th grade, I started getting like C's, and that was a big deal because 5th grade, it's not that hard. You should be able to get stuff like that. But I started like declining at that point. And I remember through high school, I was very much like, I was very much shooting for C's. Because by that point, I was getting F's. I was failing classes, and starting freshman year. So I was like shooting for C's by that point. And so I remember saying things like to my mom, "I got a C." And she'd be like, "It's a C. Like you have so much more potential. You can get a B. You can get an A. Why are you shooting for C's?" And my response was, "At least it wasn't an F." I think that what somebody said, I don't remember who it was right now, is that a lot of us, we short sell ourselves of what we're capable of doing. And I think that inside of growth, what we do is we relabel the way that we see ourselves and standards just to accommodate for where we currently are. I've talked about this before. If God's standard is all the way up here and I understand that He's all the way up there, my standard is right here and I'm constantly trying to grow to that standard. That's what I'm doing and that's what I'm going to continue to do, right? What I'm not going to do is relabel God's standard to be where I am. Because when I bring God down to where I'm at, I have zero room for growth. So when people create what I'll call excuses as to why they can't be growing anymore because they want to stay where they're at, what you do is you cap out your growth. So to me, any mind-altering substances gets you away from what it means to be clear-minded. And if you're trying to be clear-minded, because from what I understand, at least everybody that I talk to, it's not just about not being dead. Like that to me is a pretty low-level part. It's like, I'm just trying not to die. You're like, there's a lot of people out here that are not dead, and it's like, I don't go around like giving people high fives for not being dead. Dude, I'm so happy you're not dead. You know, I'm just like, it's not really like, it's a big deal for people that have been dying all the time, and there's probably a lot of people in here that have died a couple times. But to be able to just like, all right, so that's your bar forever? It's just high five, you're not dead? It's the same type of thing that I feel about any kind of like mind-altering substances or something that's slowing down our process. And I think that when we start considering these things, what we're doing is we're capping how far we can actually go by coming up with excuses. I'd actually be I would eat it a lot easier if people were to say something like, I'm still smoking weed, I'm working on it. That to me would make way more sense than somebody saying, I think it's totally okay to smoke weed. Because by that point, it's a full-blown excuse to stay where you're at. And I don't like that for myself in anything. Because I'm not just hearing this about people smoking weed, I'm hearing this about everything. At least I'm not like that dad. At least I'm not like that person over, that rich person over there who's doing this, and that, or that poor person over there. At least I'm not like a homeless person over here. They constantly compare themselves to what the worst is. And so whenever I hear somebody that's dealing with, and this is how I think about all harm reduction, that if you're doing that to yourself, you're limiting where you're at. The idea of harm reduction is just basically saying that, oh, at least you're not. And I'm like, well, how about we talk about what you can be instead of at least you're not? And that's usually where my opinion lands on the matter. Is like people smoking all the time, anything really. If it's really destroying you one way or another, trust me, there's all kinds of, as much, you can look on Google, right? You're like, is weed good for me? And you're gonna find 50% articles that says yes, and then 50 articles that say no. Which means that you have the choice to be able to figure out, where am I gonna land on this thing? Your Google's not gonna give you your answers that you need. Who's gonna give you the answers that you need is you, and your growth, and how it is that you see yourself. And me looking at my Bible, very clearly, it's telling me to always go forward, and to lean on God's standard. And that's always pushing me constantly. And everything that I'm even currently doing, I have to find out what the next step is and to be able to move forward from there. Medicinal, a question about that. I believe that can get dicey at times, but at the same time, what it's doing is it's cracking open these little tiny loopholes for people. And that's when people start talking about, oh, what about my anxiety is a medicinal thing, and my depression? And you're like, I understand what's happening. It's very clear. And if we're super honest about ourselves, we do this with all kinds of things. It's not just this. That's why this is not just an open, closed conversation. This is like, you just crack open everything. Everything is now open. To how you dress, to what you do, to what you find to be acceptable in your life, what you understand to be growth, what you understand to be stopping your growth. This is everything to do with your ideas of standard and where you're going. If your goal was just to stay alive, to everybody in here, congratulations. But if your goal is to be able to go farther than that and do something bigger than that, then look for the roadblocks that stop you from growing and move completely past those places. And I promise you, it requires bravery and willpower to be able to do that. But I believe that every single person is absolutely capable of doing so. But that's my personal opinion. Thank you for asking, Chief. Yes, sir.
Can we say marijuana / vapes / cigarettes?
Right. Again, that ends up becoming. Again, I'll say it to anybody. I believe if it's hurting the body one way or another, then you should probably work on it one way or another, right? So like, I'm going to go into like the junk food that we eat and go into like the things that we do to our bodies and all these different things. We understand, we know this, at least based off of research and stuff, that we get cancer from everything, like all of the things that we eat and stuff like that. But that requires us for us to be very cautious about what it is that we do for ourselves. And the question ends up becoming, why are you vaping? Why are you fill in the blank? Why are you doing these things? If we start asking ourselves these questions, then we will get to very quickly an answer to say, I kind of need a pacifier right now. We're like, okay, why do you need a pacifier right now? And then you start getting deeper and deeper into these answers, and they require bravery to go to these places. But at the same time, it's necessary to know where you stand. If you don't want to know where you stand, I know that feeling, 100%. Oh, you know what to tell me? I don't go to the doctor because of that, right, Chief? If I go to the doctor, they'll tell me I got cancer. I'm not going to the doctor, so I'm just going to stay over here. I don't want to know. And I think a lot of people won't ask why they do what they do because they're going to find out. And if you find out, that might come with a change. And if that comes with a change, that means that, oh man, I'm not going to be as comforted as I feel right now. That's a real thing that every single person in here has to deal with. But that comes with the standard of what it means to grow and to continuously grow, unless you're okay with just being alive. And that's why I don't think that, for me, I don't want to live my life like that, because I've been alive, super sober dude, and I've done nothing with my life. Being alive means nothing to me, because I don't have the example of saying, like, you know what, 30, 40 years of sobriety, you know what that got me? Nothing. And so for me, I'm like, opportunity to do everything is not necessarily just being sober. It's being able to do something with yourself and constantly push yourself as far as you can. And so for myself, when I hear my brothers and my sisters talking about these certain subjects, I can hear the excuses, but at the same time, I understand that it hurts. I'm not saying that it doesn't hurt. It's another thing too, is like when I state certain things, I'm not saying it's like, just shut up and stop crying and just do the thing. I understand that everything in life is hard. Growth is difficult. I don't care what state you're in. You can be coming straight off of heroin, fentanyl, and it's going to hurt. In the same way that it hurts to be able to say, I'm going to step into this new role at my job and people don't respect me very much. That's the same type of pain. I'm promising you right now. Pain is equated across the board as the same for everybody, in the same way that joy is. So when you see people going through certain things, I've said this before, first breakup versus a divorce, same feelings. You can't sit there and say, no, this one's worse and this one's worse. No, you can't do that. The way that we are as human beings is that we all go through experiences and we feel these things. And when we feel these things, you can't just look at somebody and say, no, you don't understand what they've been through. And this is not like, well, let me find you somebody who has been through it. And they're going to say the same thing that I have been saying. Which means that you're looking for an excuse. I'm looking for excuses. I'm looking for all the excuses that I can find to be able to get away with what I get away with, because I don't want to feel growth. I want to just feel like everything's fine where I'm at. I want to be complacent. And I just don't, I see something so much more for people in general, especially people that are created in the image of God. By that point, I'm like, I think that you're made for so much more than you give yourself credit. And I would love to push that more, because I'm looking for people to push that in me. I thought it was good. When I got to this circle, I thought it was good. And I've said this before, I thought I was better than everybody else. Came in and it's like, oh yeah, I'm the greatest person in the world. When I come into a group like this and end up finding out very quickly that I'm not, in fact, I'm like probably on the opposite end of that, I end up finding out that the only way that for me to recognize that is for other people to point stuff out in me and say, actually, no, that's not working for you. Actually, you're not growing. And when I get to hear those things, it hurts and it sucks. And I'm coming up with every single scripture to back me up to say, no, you're wrong. But by the end of it, I was coming up with excuses to be able to tell somebody that they're wrong, rather than trying to take any kind of challenge upon myself because I was complacent. And so when I hear that coming out of, again, my brothers and sisters, I don't see everybody in here as like a bunch of addicts that are in recovery. That's not how I see the world. I see everybody in here as my brothers and my sisters in Christ, which means that my standard for you is not, oh, you poor recovering addict. That's not how I see you. I understand that a lot of people are like, oh, that's how we should see the world of government. Oh, you poor recovering addict. It's just like, no, that's not how I see you. I see you once you said that I believe in Jesus Christ, like, whoa, you believe in a really big power, a very big power, which means that you and I are on the exact same playing field and we have to deal with the same exact spiritual warfare. And if that's the case, then we have to hold each other to the same standard of what it means to be able to come against that spiritual warfare. And I believe that it's kind of a big deal. And if you cut it short, we may not be able to go as far as we can. And I really would love to know how far we can go. Yes?
Okay, so because I know 2 points answer no answers, so I heard Anthony's side, which was more about leaders as individuals, right, and not stunting your own growth. But on the other side of it, the answer for me personally, I would say no, it's not okay. Because not only as leaders are we supposed to be growing and becoming these leaders, right? And examples. Examples is the operative word here for other people, right? And like everyone mentioned, it's a gateway, it's all these things, you can like loophole it with all sorts of things. And like, so if people are coming in to recovery fresh, like I was, they're looking for any way they can not get there, right? Or not be completely sober or not be sober-minded. And so, no, my answer is no, it's not okay. As a leader, just as an example, that weed's okay.
Just to let you know, Steve. Lisa.
Okay, as a Native American.
Yes. This is topical.
Smoking the peace pipe.
Okay, like weed peyote for me is like as long as it's properly ceremoniously prepared by the right person.
Sure.
And yes, there are right people. You gotta do your research on right people and talk to your elders. That it's not for like you don't use it constantly. There's a ceremonious way you use it. You don't, but it got romanticized over the years. They put all this stuff in it and. But if you do it in a ceremonious way, then it's properly prepared in a ceremonious way, and you only use it one time, you don't use it continuously either. I think it's okay, because it does open your mind, it does alter your mind, but it opens your mind too. As long as you do it, the way they tell you, and you do it exactly to the T, that's when you have to have, because you got to develop self-discipline before you get to it.
Nice.
Is it short?
I got a comment.
Is it short?
I'm studying. I stubbed my toe. I need a joint. My girlfriend doesn't like me anymore. I need some meth. I got ADHD, ADD, post-traumatic disorder. I use meth medicinally. It's a fucking bullshit excuse, a lame ass fucking excuse for you not to accept reality. This is fucking reality. It's a dope, it's a drug, I don't give two shits. It comes out of the ground, I don't give a shit. I don't give two shit. It's a fucking lame ass. Yeah,
End on this. Tobacco is also
fucking life-threatening disease.
Exactly.
Fucking excuse.
tobacco in the ground as well. There's also mind altering. You're
It's
smoking
a
around.
fucking excuse.
We're good. Knock it off, Carter. Let's go.
Back to
yes, please,
one
Chief.
little point I'd like to point out
Yes,
tonight,
please.
though. That's a very good discussion tonight.
Yes, absolutely.
Back when Angela was taking about how you feeling, good, and you were pointing out, like I said, a lot of times people will say that because they don't want to deal with it, whatever. There are some of us, when you ask how you're doing, I had a lady last night, she goes, how you doing? Wonderful. She goes, you say that all the time. And it's not because I live in some dreamland, but I do feel wonderful.
Yeah.
I do feel wonderful.
Yes.
You know, when I eat a meal, people go, you're going to say it's wonderful. Greatest meal you ever had.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not reflecting, not doing anything, but admitting how I really feel about it. Greatest meal I ever had. You can develop a mindset to where you can really
Be wonderful.
be high on Jesus.
Yeah.
You know, on life. And it's not deflecting, it's not doing anything. Or I could stop and look inside myself when somebody goes, how you doing? Man, my knee hurts.
Yeah.
My back hurts, and I could just talk shit all day long for me. By the end of that, I need some weed.
Yeah.
You know?
Ceremoniously.
Yeah.
Ceremoniously. But it is the mindset. It really is the mindset.
Yeah.
And the man and woman think is so early.
Yeah.
And we start getting a new mindset. You know,
Yes.
and it becomes real life. It isn't, like I said, it isn't like not facing the problems of the world. But like I said, you're able to keep a good head. While others are losing their heads around you, you're able to keep yours. And so, it's wonderful we can talk about these
Yes.
things. Thank you.
I'm going to end it on that. And I really do appreciate every single one of you guys being, one, vulnerable enough to be able to ask questions, vulnerable enough to be able to answer them with your personal answers that you have. I also applaud you for being brave enough to be able to ask these types of questions and to be in a setting like this to where we can kind of go back and forth and be able to have these question answers. Because there's a lot of times where we feel as though we can't ask questions like this because we feel caged up. That's one of the things that I want to make very clear. That a question like this is an important question to ask. What we have to do is be brave enough to receive whatever answer we get. The reason why we don't ask it is because we have an assumption as to what the answer is going to be, and we don't like the answer. I think that if we can get brave enough to say, like, let me hear the truth. And that's what the whole entire thing is about, is hearing truth. If I can hear some truth, I can actually start something. If I can hear some truth. I can't really start anything if it's all based off of lies and falsehoods. I can't. But if I can get some truth, then from that point I can say, all right, well, I can start with step one. Whatever that looks like for myself. And I think that what we prove in here is that there's a lot of opinions. But the truth is told, a lot of the opinions that we have in here, a lot of them, they really do support each other towards one specific thing. And And I believe that's important. I don't believe that every single one of us are going to be exactly the same on every single opinion about every single subject. It's not going to happen. But what's going to happen, hopefully, is that we all believe in the same God. That's important. And that's something that I'll argue with anybody about. We should be believing in the same God. What that look like? That looks like growth. That looks like us reading. That looks like us studying. That looks like us praying. That looks like us asking these types of questions and seeing where we're at when it comes to these types of things. And so, again, whether it's a question that you find to be silly, a question you find to be deep, a question you find to be not possible to have an answer to this question, I challenge you. Ask these questions. Find some people that are brave enough to do so. And again, we've proven that we have a lot of people that are very willing to give their answers, very willing to go into that place to actually start thinking with us. And I think that's a valuable thing. There are churches that people grow up in that they can't ask questions. Yeah. It's not okay to ask questions because you just sit down, shut up, and just do what you're told. Yeah. I don't like that church. I never have. And for me, I like to be able to be involved with my growth. I want to know why I'm going the direction that I'm going. Because if you tell me why and how this whole thing works, you have a passionate soldier on your team. Because if you tell me why, I now understand. I'm doing this because of this, and that, and I actually have everything to back me up as I do it. Those are super important qualities to have. If we're just sitting there just being robots, God did not create us to be robots. He gave us full-blown autonomy and the capability of being able to ask these questions. Because, man, we all take from the fruit of the tree, the fruit of knowledge. All of us did. Which means that when we have that, it means like, all right, if you want to know something, let me give you the honest answer for it. And most of us don't want to hear the honest answer. Yes, and I think it's really good for us to be able to continue to lean in that place and to continue to do that. So I really do appreciate everybody being honest and expressing themselves. Would anybody like to pray us out? No. Please.
Stand up or no?
Yeah, let's stand up. Why not? This is Chief's favorite part. No, you're okay.
Everybody, don't forget to put your prayer requests in the box up here. If you're here throughout the week, there's one outside. We want to pray for you. Also, Anthony and I have decided that we're going to do upper room every week. So we are going to be doing it Wednesdays at 5:30. So if anybody wants to join us, please do so. Also, the devotional sign up is still open. If you guys are not on it once a week, come find me afterwards. I'll get you on there. And that is all.
That is all.
Right.
Don't forget, we have Sunday night recovery. Do you have anything going on tomorrow that you want to announce, Chief? Or no?
No, just a lot of special situations.
Sweet.
Undercover.
We got some undercover stuff, so do your own thing, be productive tomorrow, be safe, whatever it is that you do. And like I said, we have Sunday morning, we go to New Song, 11 o'clock. Please show up with us. We love to roll in deep as much as we can and show how much it is that we do love that church, and Pastor Dave has claimed us.
And Sunday night, DJ Fausto is going to be up on the sound.
That's right.
He's not like DJ Mike, but he's okay.
Yes, so Sunday night's going to be a blast, as it always is. It always feels as though the last Sunday is better than the one before. So we just keep on getting better and better and having more fun. But who's praying for us? Please, Toya.
Come on, Toya.
I'm going to close with this. Dear Lord, we come to you today, Lord, Ahodaki. We come to you, Lord, today, Lord. Thank you for this gathering, Lord. Thank you for Pastor Anthony, Lord. Thank you for Chief, SB, Wes, our leaders. Thank you for our upcoming leaders, Lord. We come to you, Lord, to give blessings to our leaders, Lord, because I know that, like, a lot of the times they're not prayed for as well, Lord. Give them strength to keep leading us through you, through Lord Jesus Christ, Lord. I come to you, Lord, to thank you for everything that we learned tonight, Lord, and to ask you, whoever is, or for us to feel comfortable in our vulnerability, that if we're hiding something inside or holding something inside that it doesn't use a loud word, and we're able to come and talk to somebody else and talk to with our brothers and sisters about what's going on with us, so we can learn and grow within ourselves, Lord. I come to you to ask everybody to have safe travels home, and again, bless this whole house and everybody in it and outside of it, and all the ones who are still addicted and our families who are suffering. In your name we pray.
Amen. Thank you guys.